name is Dave Rude. I'm the CityLight League Director. I just want to thank you so much for volunteering to coach CityLight Basketball this year. In this video, I'm going to share with you some tips on coaching youth basketball, also a glimpse of what a practice should look like, and we'll also have some, in the video, some of the drills that we do that you could use at your own practice. I'm going to start off with a few tips. First and foremost, you need to have a whistle, okay? So if you don't have a whistle, you need to go buy a whistle. It's very important. It's very hard to have a practice without a whistle. This really helps in keeping control of practice and bring structure. Secondly, you need to wear a blue shirt, blue pants, and blue shoes to practice. This really keeps the kids' attention, and it's a great look. I look really good at it, and I think you will too. Now, on to the tips. I have about probably 10 suggestions on what it means to run a good practice. I've coached probably 25, 30 teams in the last 12 years, and I've learned a lot of what to do, what not to do. And these are just some of my suggestions. I hope they can help you and with your team. It is really important that there's at least 2 coaches at every practice. Now, you should have at least 2 coaches on your team. Sometimes they even have 3, 4, but minimally you want to have 2. If you're missing, let's say your assistant coach is sick or he or she's got to be gone, it's really important for you to try to recruit one of the parents or somebody else to come help you at practice, because if there's only one coach, you're going to have probably 9 or 10 kids on your team. If there's only one coach, you can only do so much, and it's really difficult to run a good practice with one coach. Sometimes it might just end up that you just can't do anything about it, but I just want to encourage you to do everything you can to try to get a second coach. I know sometimes I've shown up and my assistant maybe just gave me a word last second, and I just go over to one of the parents and I say, hey, any parents, my assistant's gone tonight, could you just come and step in and help me? And I've always been successful with that. So it's important to have 2 coaches. With practices, you really want your kids to stay moving. You want to minimize the time that you're just having them stand and listen to you. You want them moving. You want practice to just go from one thing to the next, and you want a lot of movement. You want to keep things simple. And one of the big goals with youth sports, and especially with our program, is we want the kids to get some good exercise and to be tired at the end of practice. There's nothing wrong with having sprints at each practice, and just doing your best to use the whole court. You don't want to have one line with 10 kids. You try to teach one skill, and a kid gets to shoot the ball every couple minutes because there's one line. This is why you need more than one coach. You want to have minimum lines with your drills. And what I mean by that is, if you have 10 players, 2 coaches, the worst thing you could do is have everybody down at one hoop and doing one drill, let's say one layup. They do a layup like every minute or so. What you want to do is you want to set 5 of your players down with your assistant coach, 5 with you. You can get a lot more shots in that way. Another thing you could do, let's say if you're doing some sort of shooting drill, you could have 2 lines at each basket of shooting, or 3 lines. That way there's a lot of shooting going on. We want to stay away from just kids standing around. Sometimes I would say, with the exception, there are some times at the beginning of trying to teach a skill for the first few minutes, you want the whole team together and you just demonstrate, but you don't want that to go on very long. You want to be able to split down into smaller groups and get the kids running and shooting and dribbling as much as possible. You will have one of these side courts to practice on, and it should be big enough for, even if you have 7th and 8th graders, you need to just do the best you can at utilizing the space. I'll just make a quick demonstration. If you're doing a layup drill, you could do a layup right here, but maybe you start them here, they go in for a layup, and that's great. So you have, let's say, 5 players here doing the layups and 5 players doing the layups in on here. If you feel like you want to incorporate some more ball handling, dribbling with this, do a full court layup. And all that means, go down as far as you can in this corner, have them dribble all the way down, do a layup, dribble all the way back. And even if you have these older kids, this side court, if you're creative and use your space, it should be plenty of space. So with that, we want as much as possible at the end of practices, the kids would be tired, they'd be sweating, that they would have got a lot of exercise. So we want to encourage that as much as possible. So you use both hoops, use the whole floor, and try to keep the kids moving as much as possible and keep things simple. We don't want to have complex drills that take a long time to explain that are really kind of secondary. You only have 1 hour a week. We want to work on the basics of shooting, dribbling, passing, and some rebounding stuff, a few things, but really shooting and dribbling are the main things that we want to focus on. We only have so much time, it's only 1 hour. I will just kind of go on a tangent a little bit here. From my perspective, it's much better that kids are better offensively than defensively. I'd much rather see kids develop their ball handling skills and shooting skills than spending a ton of time on defense in this league, because I'd much rather see games that are 50-48 than 8-6 or something, because both teams are amazing defensively, because coaches are spending all this time working on defense. The majority of time should be spent with shooting and dribbling and the basic fundamentals. And you can, not to say you can work on rebounding, you can work on defense, but it should be only a small percentage of your time. Okay, moving on. We're getting through these actually pretty well. Along with kids being tired and having them moving and running, you're going to want to make sure you give them some water breaks. Usually 2 to 3 a practice, so just keep aware of that. You don't want to run them so tired that you know, they're hurting too bad. So you want to have some water breaks. There are mid-practice Bible devotions. They're usually we want them to be about 5 to 6 minutes, and you'll get more information about that, and we'll talk about that in coaches' meetings and stuff. But you just want to take 5 or 6 minutes, prepare the night before, and trust God that He would use you those 5 or 6 minutes to speak truth into the children's lives. We do not want these Bible devotions going on for 10, 15 minutes. They're supposed to be 5 or 6 minutes, and they can be very effective within that time frame. I want to encourage you guys that it's good to have a scrimmage at each practice as much as possible. I would say 10, 15, 20 minutes. And that's a really good tool for you to teach the game to the players. The kids on your team really enjoy playing a game, so they're going to love scrimmaging. It's also a great opportunity for you to teach the game. Maybe during your scrimmage, the players are not passing the ball, they're not playing defense correctly, they're double dribbling, traveling, going out of bounds, who knows what. It's a great time for you to blow your whistle, stop and say, okay, everybody freeze. You see what so-and-so did? You know, that's a travel, that's a double dribble. Hey, let's freeze now. Look how close you all are, within 10 feet of each other. We need to spread out. We need to pass the ball. So that scrimmaging can be really fun. It's a winning time for your players. It's a great teaching opportunity for you as well. So just keep that in mind. Scrimmaging is great. Obviously, you want to try to bring as much energy as you can to each practice and games, giving high fives and encouragement, and really telling kids what they're doing well and what they're improving in. The more enthusiasm you have, the more that they can tell that you care about them, and that it encourages them to try harder and improve. So that's just obvious, but give a lot of high fives, encouragement, try to bring a lot of energy to practice as much as possible. I will briefly talk about, on the flip side, if you are having just kids that are not behaving very well, they're disrupting practice, that can be hard. And I would say the most effective thing that I've seen with that is that you would have a team rule that say, if you're disrupting practice, if you're berating your teammates, if you're breaking team rules, if you're doing whatever the coach is saying and not listening, just misbehaving generally, I would say that they need to go sit down for 5 minutes and say, okay, you need to go sit down, just have some chairs out there, you go sit down for 5 minutes, then come back in. If they misbehave again, go sit down for 5 minutes. You may have to talk with a parent about that. Feel free to contact me or any of the commissioners, and we can help you with that process. But that leads me into team rules. It is good at first practice, second practice, just to sit down and talk with them and say, these are our team rules. When a coach is talking, you need to either hold the basketball or put it on the floor and look at the coach. That's a good rule to have. Listen. Hold the balls, put them down. That's a good team rule. Another rule can be, we always encourage our teammates. We don't make fun of them, berate them, whatever it may be. We encourage our teammates, and we show good sportsmanship to the other team. We're not making fun of them or using profanity or whatever it may be. Another good thing is that we respect the referee and that we work hard. Another good rule to have is when we're here for this hour, everybody is going to try their best. We're not going to lollygag. We're going to work hard. So that's a good thing for players to know that's a rule. We're going to do our best, try our best for that 1 hour. Another good team rule is the way that players handle basketballs. Basketballs are expensive. We need to respect them. And so some basic basketball rules. We do not kick them. That's against the rules. We do not sit on basketballs. We do not throw them up against the concrete wall. And when the coach says hold the basketball, that's another rule. Hold the basketball. So mainly kicking basketballs, throwing up against the concrete wall, sitting on them. Please take care of the basketballs. For basketballs, we, at each of our practice locations, at the Windsor Heights location, downtown location, there are 5 ball racks like this one. There are 2 ball racks that have 27-5 basketballs. And these 27-5s are going to be used for first grade and second grade and third grade and fourth grade. This is a slight change. In the previous years, we've used the smallest basketball for first and second grade and kindergarten. Starting this year, we're only going to be using the small basketball for kindergarten. Starting for first graders, second graders, third graders, fourth graders, I'm going to use the 27-5s. We have 2 ball racks that are 27-5s at each location. If you have a team in first grade, second grade, third grade, or fourth grade, when you come to practice, these ball racks will be in storage closet. You go in there, look for a rack that says 27-5 for first grade, second grade, third grade, and fourth grade. And you can bring the ball cart onto the court, and that's what you use for your practice. You'll have about 10 to 12 basketballs. We want ideally 1 basketball per player, and then 1 or 2 basketballs for each coach, just so you can help demonstrate. So you'll see a ball rack similar to that with your size basketballs. When you're done with practice, it'd be best if you could try to locate all your basketballs and put them back in the storage rack after practice, or hand your ball rack off to the next coach if they're using the same size basketballs. Now, like I said, for kindergarten, we're going to be using this 25-inch basketball that we always have, and so there'll be 1 ball rack at each location with this, the small basketballs, but that's for kindergarten. 27-5s for first grade, second grade, third grade, fourth grade, and then there's the 28-5, and that is for 5th through 8th grade. 28-5 is also known as the women's size basketball, and that's what's used up until high school, even for boys. The 29-5 is a basketball that men use, but we don't have any 29-5s. We might have some balls that are for coaches that are 29-5s, but all the teams for games and practice will be 28-5s. Same thing, find your ball rack that's for your age group, bring it out for practice, use it. It's a great thing to have on your sideline. Tell kids balls in the rack. It's a great way to keep practices organized and a good way for us to keep the balls where they need to be. So look for your ball rack and then put it away at the end of practice. So now I'll say that if in the circumstance that you can't find your size or something, it's not going to be the end of the world for you to use. The 28.5s and the 27.5s aren't very different. But in an ideal world, that's what we'll do. So, but that's what we'd like to do with ball racks. Use your ball rack, take it out at practice, and then put it away or give it to the next team if they need the same size basketball. Teaching a child how to shoot a basketball has been something that I've been very interested in over the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And it's not always the easiest thing to do, but I feel like I have learned a few things in the last number of years trying to teach children to shoot. First of all, it is very important. I didn't realize this at the beginning when I was trying to teach kids to shoot, but their feet being in the proper position is actually very important. A lot of times you'll see kids, and I'm talking about someone that's a right-handed shooter, where you have your right foot in front of your left at about shoulder width apart. You'll see a lot of times kids, right-handed shooters, shooting like this, and the reason they're doing that is because it's the way they can generate enough strength to get the ball to the hoop. And it's usually when they're trying to shoot really far shots, or they're trying to shoot on a 10-foot hoop and they're only like in first grade. So I found that I look at their feet a lot. I'll tell them, get your feet right. Get your feet right. They'll be getting ready to shoot it, and I'll be like, get your feet right. So then they'll get their feet right. And that forces them, I found, to get into a more appropriate and more fundamentally sound shooting position, because it's harder to shoot this hip shot when your feet are correct. To shoot the hip shot that you see a lot of kids, they have to shoot like this and up. So if they get their feet right, it's important. I spend a lot of time. Or sometimes kids will be shooting like this, or they'll, even sometimes wider. So when I'm trying to teach a kid how to shoot, a lot of times they'll say, get your feet right, and they know what I'm talking about. So then they stop and they get their feet correct, and that helps with their fundamentals and helps their shooting form. Also, being able to teach a kid and tell a kid that really they're only shooting with one hand is really an important thing. I think a lot of kids just intuitively think that because they have two hands on the ball, they're shooting the ball somehow with two hands, and so they end up shooting a two-handed shot, or they hold on, they're shooting the ball and their guide hand gets in the way of their shot. So being able to teach a kid that you're really only shooting with one hand, and the second hand, the guide hand, is just there to keep the ball from falling off your shooting hand is really important. So getting your feet right, trying to teach a kid over the course of the season that they're actually only shooting with one hand is very important. Also, they need to get their elbow under the ball. Sometimes you'll see kids shooting like this. I say, get your elbow in. It needs to be in, right underneath the ball, right in line with their foot. So you see this, you got to get their elbow in. I would say the third thing I talk about with kids a lot of times, they need to learn how to flick their wrist. They'll start getting their elbow in and their follow through, but they'll end up shooting like this, or they'll shoot and just kind of go like this. They need to learn how to flick their wrist. Flick their wrist. And over a season, over a few weeks, if you keep telling them that, encouraging them to do that, they'll learn that when they shoot the ball, they need to flick their wrist in order to get that backspin and shoot the ball properly. And then the thing that probably the players that I've coached in the past will say the most that I say is hold your follow through. And so that you got your feet right, you got your elbow under the ball in waiter position, you have a 90-degree angle. You're shooting with one hand and you're flicking your wrist. And then I'll tell kids all the time, hold your follow through until the ball hits the floor. And that, I think what I found with that is it helps kids understand, one, that they're shooting with one hand, because once they start holding their follow through, they realize that they're shooting with one hand. It's the proper technique to hold your follow through, and I think it just really helps their brain understand what it means. It ties everything together, because if a kid is just going ahead, they got their feet right, and they're flicking their wrist, and they're just going like this, it's not good shooting for them, and it also, I think it hinders them from understanding how the whole shot comes together. So I tell kids all the time, hold your follow through, hold your follow through, hold your follow through, and I usually say till the ball hits the floor. So when they shoot it, and either the ball goes through the net, hits the floor, or they shoot it and misses, hits the floor. That's what I usually tell them. Hopefully they come close to that. That is pretty long to hold your follow through, but if they're actually doing that, it really helps their shooting and their understanding of how to shoot a basketball. Finally, another thing I'll do when I'm trying to teach kids how to shoot is I don't focus on whether or not they always make the basket. If I see a kid, he's shooting with correct form, and he's holding his follow through, I don't even necessarily always care if it goes through the hoop or not. The same way if a kid is shooting the ball incorrectly and the ball's banking off and going in, I don't say good shot or good job, or a lot of times we'll say shoot that ball again. You did not shoot the ball correctly. So, again, get your feet right, elbow under the ball, flick the wrist, and hold the follow through. Those are the basic fundamentals of shooting basketball. One last thing is you don't want kids to shoot when the ball is on their palm, and you don't want a fingertip shot also. You just want a nice natural feel, and you want a little bit of space. You don't want a lot of space, you want a little bit of space. And if someone shoots on their palm, it really is hard for them to become a good shooter, because it's really hard to get a good feel for how the ball is coming off your fingertips, and it's harder to control. So that's just one other small thing. To wrap this up, what I do with my kids is I am very passionate in them learning the correct fundamentals of shooting. So usually with my practices is I'll do some form shooting for 5-6 minutes, and I'll try to kind of get on them a little bit. I'll say, you get your feet right, you shoot the ball correctly, hold your follow through. But then it's time for them to do like a shooting game. And at some point you kind of have to let the kids just have fun too. So I'm not the whole practice yelling at them saying, hold your follow through, get your feet right, flick your wrist. I usually spend about half the practice doing that and half the practice letting them have fun, and hopefully, because if you're on them every single game, every practice, every time they shoot the ball and tell them what they're doing wrong, that takes the fun out of it. So I try to kind of have a balance there. I take about half the practice to really kind of get on them, and then half the time just let them play, and hopefully they'll have those fundamentals when they're just shooting around or playing in games or doing whatever. So that's what I found out about shooting, and I think shooting is the best part of basketball. So, handling the basketball, your dribbling skills, and just your overall ability to handle the ball correctly and proficiently is very important in basketball. And so with practices, it's always very important to spend a good portion of your practice, I would say at least 10 to 20% of your practice working on dribbling. And there's stationary dribbling, and then there's full court dribbling. And what you want to be doing with the kids is you want to focus on trying to get their head up, regardless of what age they are. You want to spend a lot of time with them working on dribbling with their left hand or their right, but if they're right-handed, they're going to want to dribble the ball all the time with their right hand. So you're going to want to spend a lot of time, if it's a full court dribbling drill, you maybe let them go down once with their right hand, but then the last 2 or 3 times, it's like we're dribbling with the left hand. All you right-handers dribble with your left, you left-handers, you dribble with your right. So you really want to encourage them to get proficient using their offhand. Also, when you're doing any sort of dribbling, you're not going to get much, a player's not going to get much better if they just kind of go slowly. What you want to teach them is that they just really need to push themselves when they're dribbling the ball. And dribbling really, it's not patting the ball, it is trying to push the ball into the floor with your fingers. So it's not patting, it's trying to push the ball down hard with your fingers, pushing it down hard with your fingers. And players, hopefully, will be able to go faster and faster with the ball as the season progresses, both with their right and with their left. So hopefully the players aren't just kind of just casually doing this because it's very important. So you just want to tell them we're going to spend a little bit of time on ball handling and dribbling, and you got to push yourself hard. And I would say with dribbling, you can't necessarily push yourself hard with shooting. With shooting, you need to do it properly, the right way, all the time. Now with dribbling, it's more of a physical thing and a mental thing when you're really trying to improve your speed, and your muscles are going to get tight and tired with dribbling, but that's how you improve with your dribbling. That's all I have with dribbling. Use the left hand, head up, and when they're doing it, they need to try to push themselves to go a little bit faster each week. So that's it. That's it. Get to the cone, you can put your outside leg, see how my outside leg puts the cone? Get to the cone, foot can be towards the cone. Okay, everybody get a ball. Sometimes use your left hand. Don't always use your right hand. Ease out. Just dribble out. Okay. 1, 2, 3, switch. Everybody freeze. That's good. Freeze. I want to see what your follow through is. Your elbow in. So we're going to aim for their chest as much as you can. Flick your wrist down. Flick your thumbs down. Okay? One other thing is you want to step, as a passer, you want to step towards your teammate, okay, when you pass it, okay? Pass. Step, okay? Up, okay? Right, again, sit a little bit. Right foot first. Here we go. So from triple threat, you can go ahead and make a pass. From triple threat, you can go ahead and then dribble. From triple threat, you can go ahead and shoot, okay? So in basketball, you don't want to just be standing around like this. You want your knees bent. You want to have your feet about shoulder width apart. And you want to be able to move, okay? So that's triple threat position. Just down here. You might hear your coach say, get in triple threat position. That means get down here and go. Okay, so like this. Okay? Jump forward just a little bit. Not a lot, just a little bit. Okay? Ready? Go. Okay, that's a jump stop, okay? Alright, good. Okay? You want to imagine as if you got a piece of bubble gum on your foot and you just can't even get it off the floor, okay? Okay? Keep it in good triple threat position. Pivot, pivot, pivot. Okay? When we play defense, we want our legs nice and wide, and we want to like sit down, okay? Sit back and sit down, okay? And we want our hands up. Hands up. That way, if someone passes it, we can steal the ball, and that way it's harder for the other team to get passes their teammates. So I want you to sit down,